Picture this: an individual you've admired for years, warm-hearted, supportive, always upholding the highest principles. This person might be the coworker who volunteers to mentor new hires, the family member who devotes weekends to charity work, or even a friend whose steady compassion lifted you through tough times. Now imagine watching them evolve, bit by bit, into someone who seems cold and even cruel, dishing out cutting remarks online or endorsing harsh measures in the workplace. You may ask, how could a person who once stood for goodness drift so far from their moral center? Modern life complicates this question more than ever. In an era of endless social media scrolling and non-stop messaging, the lines between private thoughts and public actions can blur. We witness emotional flare-ups in comment sections and quiet manipulations behind closed conference room doors. Digital apps reward quick reactions over thoughtful responses. News feeds bombard us with controversies that push our sense of us versus them. Time and again, seemingly decent people get caught in a spiral of anger, scapegoating, or raw cynicism, only to declare later, "That's not who I am." Yet history and psychology show it can happen to anyone. The slip from ethical to unethical, from kind to cruel, rarely happens in a single lurch. It arrives through subtle nudges. Before people know it, they're rationalizing harmful behaviors that would have horrified their younger selves. The final piece of this mystery, which we'll unravel here, isn't just theoretical. It reveals exactly how fragile our moral sense can be when surrounded by certain modern pressures. Pressure from authorities, from peer groups, even from within our own minds. By the end, you'll see why understanding these influences might be the key to staying true to your best self in a world brimming with reasons to give up on virtue. But before we dive deeper into this, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you're ready to take a ride through this journey. Everything begins quietly. That one-time white lie, a quick glance at test answers posted on social media, or maybe an overly harsh retweet you justify as just venting. Our modern environment is saturated with temptations to stretch the truth or toss aside empathy in the name of convenience. Online, we casually insult a stranger's opinion because we think they'll never see us in real life. At work, we submit a slightly inaccurate report because it speeds things along and nobody questions it. Each tiny breach feels too small to matter. Yet psychology teaches us about the slippery slope effect. Cross one moral line, even if it's a faint scratch, and the next line feels less intimidating. After all, no one got hurt, or I was just following the trend everyone else follows. In a world where online challenges encourage reckless stunts, and corporate culture sometimes rewards the whatever-it-takes mentality, these small breaches add up quickly. While the transformation might be slow and almost invisible, it's powerful. Step by step, a once principled individual may discover they're now comfortable with behaviors they once condemned as unethical. In modern times, this effect gets supercharged. Social platforms encourage rapid decisions. Like or dislike, support or condemn. The more impulsive the environment, the easier it becomes to blur moral lines. And with each blur, the person we were is replaced by someone just a shade more callous or indifferent. Over days, months, or years, the shift can be profound. We wake up, check our online feeds, and realize we're tolerating or even promoting language or actions that would have shocked us in the past. Yet each step felt justified in the moment. That's how subtle the descent can be. Authority doesn't just exist in government offices or hierarchical businesses anymore. It appears in new forms, from celebrity influencers we worship on social media to charismatic motivational speakers who promise quick-fix life advice. People with large followings can wield an alarming amount of power over our decisions, as we often assume they know better, or they must be trustworthy. Everyone else follows them. This echoes psychologist Stanley Milgram's revelations, where participants felt compelled to deliver what they believed were dangerous electric shocks, all because a person in a lab coat instructed them to continue. Of course, Milgram's experiment has its share of controversies and rumors. Some participants allegedly suspected the shocks weren't real, casting doubt on whether the findings truly reflect obedience. Even so, the lesson remains haunting. Many of us hold an innate urge to obey perceived authority. Fast forward to our digital age, and you see the effect magnified. If a social media guru with 1 million followers proclaims a certain behavior is the path to success, how many will comply without hesitation? At work, modern hierarchies still operate on the same principle. An employee might feel moral discomfort about a new company policy but goes along with it, thinking, my boss must know better, or it's not my place to question. Especially in an economy where job security can be shaky, people fear risking their livelihood by challenging superiors. The end result: another gradual slip down that slope, justified by, I'm just doing what I'm told. For better or worse, authority in the digital era is decentralized, popping up in TikTok feeds, YouTube channels, and Twitter threads. It often arrives without the usual credentials but still carries emotional weight. When these pseudo-authorities encourage hatred or dishonesty, or simply model questionable actions, thousands, if not millions, may follow suit, never pausing to reflect on the moral implications. That's the quiet power of authority in the 21st century. Few forces mold human behavior more powerfully than the quest to belong. The internet has given rise to myriad communities, political subreddits, fan groups, lifestyle collectives, each with its own, jokes, jargon, and unspoken rules. Belonging can be wonderful, fostering support and shared purpose. But it can also spark a destructive us versus them mentality. Inside these echo chambers, opinions get reinforced, while opposing viewpoints become demonized. When we're constantly rewarded with likes, shares, or supportive comments for bashing a rival group, real empathy fades. The people on the outside become faceless targets or scapegoats. And here's where it gets extra dangerous. Once we view another person or group as inherently inferior, harmful, or malicious, it becomes far easier to justify cruelty against them. History offers repeated examples of how societies dehumanized enemy groups, leading to terrible violence. Today's online world can be an incubator for the same mentality, just on a different scale. Cyberbullying, cancel campaigns, and doxing are modern expressions of the same tribal hostility. Individuals who might be gentle in person can become vicious online, seeing those on the opposite side of a screen as deserving of verbal attacks or humiliation. And ironically, they often believe they're standing up for something noble or essential, never realizing how deeply they've plunged into the same darkness they claim to oppose. We all like to think of ourselves as good people. When our actions threaten that identity, we experience mental conflict, what psychologist Leon Festinger called cognitive dissonance. Rather than admit we did something wrong, we frequently massage our beliefs to accommodate our behavior. Online, for example, someone might hurl a humiliating insult at a stranger and later think, they were trolling me first, or I'm defending my community, thereby reframing an act of aggression as a righteous deed. This phenomenon weaves throughout history and across countless controversies. The Stanford prison experiment, often invoked to illustrate how quickly people adopt abusive roles, has its own swirl of rumors. Some say participants, especially the guards, were subtly pushed to become harsher. Whatever the truth, the outcome was stark. Once people started acting cruelly, they found ways to justify it. It's just an experiment, they might have thought. This is what's expected of me. The deeper they went, the more they had to reshape their moral beliefs to avoid feeling guilt. In everyday life, self-justification thrives wherever personal stakes are high. In a workplace, an employee might fudge a few numbers under pressure and then explain it away, my supervisor practically forced my hand, or everyone else does it. On social media, a person might post a vicious takedown of someone's character and insist they're merely sharing the truth. Over time, these justifications pile up. The more we engage in questionable actions, the more adept we become at spinning them as noble or necessary. In the end, the identity we cling to, I'm a good person, can blind us to obvious moral lapses. It's a curious twist of psychology. Performing or publicizing one good action can sometimes make us feel entitled to slip up later. This is moral licensing in action. Imagine someone who donates to a noteworthy cause in the morning, then lashes out in the afternoon, rationalizing that their earlier good deed offsets their later behavior. It's a dangerous game of internal moral bookkeeping. The digital age amplifies this effect. Social media makes it easy to highlight charitable deeds, progressive stances, or inspiring achievements. Some individuals, having garnered likes and praise for these positive acts, may feel subconsciously excused to be harsher or more dismissive later on. In certain corners of the internet, you'll even see people brag about their moral superiority one moment, then viciously attack someone who disagrees with them the next. The contradiction goes unnoticed because they think their good track record justifies a little cruelty. This illusion of righteousness can also take a collective form. Groups that see themselves as morally pure can end up silencing or bullying outsiders under the banner of protecting our cause. They might claim, "We're standing up for justice, so we have to be ruthless," never realizing they're reproducing the very injustices they once opposed. In daily life, you might spot this in a friend circle that prides itself on being socially conscious yet mercilessly ostracizes anyone who slightly diverges from their norms. The individuals involved believe they're championing good, but in reality, they're fueling a cycle of hostility and exclusion. On social media, empathy often takes a back seat. Words on a screen can feel disconnected from real-life human emotions. As a result, even people known for kindness might engage in harmful language toward strangers, labeling them in ways that reduce their humanity. This isn't confined to the internet, but digital platforms certainly expedite the process. Dehumanization might show up as calling someone an animal, a machine, or an inherently evil to them, all patterns that echo historical propaganda. Once the other person is perceived as less than human, countless restrictions on cruelty vanish. Trolls justify relentless harassment by insisting the victims don't deserve respect. Online mobs band together, convinced they're simply taking down a monster, forgetting that a living person sits behind that profile picture. It's not just random individuals who suffer. Workplace tools, messaging apps, and even private Slack channels can become arenas of group bullying where some employees are ridiculed behind closed doors. A manager who endorses a toxic culture may end up dehumanizing staff with bureaucratic or demeaning language. Over time, these daily microaggressions accumulate. They might never rise to the scale of historical atrocities, yet they quietly infect our communities with cynicism and cruelty. So why do we remain so fascinated by the dark side of human nature? Perhaps it's because we suspect that under the right conditions, we, too, could be led astray. Tales of the Stanford prison experiment, for instance, have persisted for decades, fueled by talk that the guards were pushed to extremes, or that some prisoners were on the verge of mental breakdown. Rumors even claim some nearly off themselves from the psychological toll. Likewise, Milgram's obedience studies stir constant debates. One batch of critics says participants never truly believed they were shocking anyone, while others argue that even the possibility should have halted them. Then there are the more sensational stories. Participants who supposedly ODD afterward or sank into deep depression. Hard evidence for these claims may be scarce, but they keep resurfacing because they tap into our collective dread. Could this happen to me? Modern conspiracies swirl with the notion that governments, corporations, or shadowy investors back hidden experiments aimed at controlling public behavior. While proof is often minimal, these rumors highlight a real tension. We worry that we're more susceptible to manipulation than we'd like to admit. And maybe we are. The crucial question is whether understanding this vulnerability can make us stronger. Psychologist Philip Zimbardo coined the term Lucifer Effect to explain how situational forces can corrupt even the best of us. No matter how rock-solid someone's moral compass seems, the environment, our workplaces, social circles, or online communities, has a way of tilting that compass off course. Zimbardo's own methods have faced scrutiny. Some believe he egged on participants in the Stanford prison experiment, intensifying the drama. Regardless, the central theme stands firm. Environment often trumps individual character. Look around at our hyper-connected world. From news feeds that highlight provocative clickbait to social circles that reinforce collective biases, we're bombarded by influences we barely register. Corporate structures sometimes reward cutthroat behavior. Online entertainment frequently glamorizes cynicism or moral ambiguity. Even friend groups can slide into gossip sessions that breed negativity and mistrust. All of these factors, the sum of our environment, shape the moral decisions we make, usually in small, daily increments. Yet we are not simply puppets. We can actively curate our surroundings. That might mean choosing to follow thought leaders who promote kindness rather than division, or gravitating to workplaces that prioritize ethics over profit at any cost. Sometimes it demands confronting an organization's toxic culture from within, pushing for change even if it risks our popularity or job security. This path isn't easy, but it's pivotal if we want to steer clear of the downward spiral that turns good people into something they never intended to be. If there's one crucial takeaway from the stories, experiments, and rumors surrounding moral corruption, it's this: nobody is automatically immune. Believing you're above moral compromise can be the first step toward complacency. The truth is, our capacity for both compassion and cruelty lives side by side. Whether we nurture empathy or drift toward darkness hinges on countless tiny decisions we make every single day, online and off. Fortunately, recognizing this fragility also lights a path toward growth. We can become better versions of ourselves by staying alert to the smallest compromises, by challenging authority when it conflicts with our conscience, and by resisting the seductive pull of groupthink. We can practice empathy in digital spaces, remembering there are real hearts and minds behind those usernames. We can hold ourselves accountable when we catch a whiff of self-justification or moral licensing creeping into our thoughts. We can question whether our good deeds are just disguises for a later excuse to act poorly. In practical terms, it might mean pausing before reacting to an inflammatory post, or volunteering to mediate a workplace conflict instead of fueling the gossip mill. It could involve leaving online communities that thrive on rage or hatred, seeking out mentors who encourage self-reflection and humility, or finding work environments that champion ethical decision-making. Small, conscious steps form our moral armor against environments that want us to grow indifferent or cruel. So the next time you stand at a crossroads, faced with a task that feels a little dishonest, or a digital spat that begs for a savage takedown, imagine where that path can lead if left unchecked. Consider instead the choice that upholds your integrity, fosters real connection, and maintains empathy for the people on the other side of the screen or desk. Because in the end, the difference between a good person and a monster isn't fate, genetics, or luck. It's in how you respond to the pressures of the world around you. And the power to respond well, to remain steadfast, empathetic, and self-aware, lies entirely in your hands.